crazy. I think they made a typo, just like Tuttle Bottle, but the R is the S.
Okay, we are now live. 9:21 p.m. Mountain Time, 12/26/2023. This is Infinite Plane Radio, Mind War Inoculation. 505-349-0420. You can call with any comments, constructive criticism, or complaints. Let me go ahead and update the title of the live stream. The last one was something about Chinese space planes, which they didn't drop any nukes on Christmas. And so what does this mean? Does it mean that the predictive programming, which was predicting doom for the winter solstice, is just more of this, what is it, doom hope? They get you to expect something, it doesn't happen, but the threat of the thing is more powerful than the thing itself when it comes to their social control, so maybe it doesn't matter. Or is there still something coming? And I'm actually in that camp, and I think you'll see why here in a minute. Again, phones are open, 505-349-0420. Let's see who has arrived. All right, yeah, if you just got here, we rebooted the 24/7 stream. We're also available on all of the audio platforms as well. Although, maybe it's the laptop on its last leg. I might need to update it, but the auxiliary computer that runs the audio encoder often buffers. I'll work with that. It's in my notes. I have a list of things to talk about, like the zombie virus, the deer zombie virus. So the deer zombie virus thing could tie into the cover art of Leave the World Behind. And we're going to talk about Ye, and is he faking it about being crazy? We're also going to talk about the Mars bunkers and the real message behind Leave the World Behind. Additionally, we have some great news as far as the channel goes. The Autohoaxology 101 textbook orders have been fulfilled. They just went out the door. In fact, the reason why we're about 10 minutes late is I just got back from the run to the post office. One package, someone had ordered multiples. I couldn't fit it in the box, but I'll take it in the morning. But these will be out in the morning, on the way, and I've already restocked the inventory. And the primary mission for 2024 is to promote this, and is to promote auto-hoaxing itself, but based on the arguments contained within this book. The book has a glossary, has an outline of what I consider to be the essential framework for understanding the types of, I would say, the skepticism that we're employing, the very specific applied skepticism towards mass media, and why we conceptualize mass media monolithically. And predictive programming does play a part in this. And for the people who deny predictive programming, it's ridiculous. We predict it. Well, like, watch, Leave the World Behind is going to connect to real world events, and it just did, one after another. And the people who mock this idea are just left looking ignorant, that's all. Incapable of understanding their own brainwashing, and I don't envy their visual illiteracy, their lack of comprehension. Like, their brainwashing. They seem to think it's like piety. It's a sense of piety, holier than thou. I'm more mediated than thou. Yeah, your mind is completely massified. They washed it for you. Good job. But my point of it is, we're engaging in a level of skepticism that acknowledges that the worldview that we could consider to be the consensus is just a model. And it is designed and tailored by those who control media. And that is a huge step, philosophically or epistemologically, to take, because it recognizes that, hey, we may not actually know what's really going on. And some people don't want to believe that. They want to think that the limit of human knowledge is out there at the edge of the universe, that everything else is pretty much known, just a bunch of empty space. And that's one of the big lies. And I've been referring to the mediated mindset as the digital hoodwink, a reference to the purposeful endarkenment of the profane by the initiates for the purposes of social control. Knowledge is power, and the ignorance is there on purpose. And the hoodwink, the wool over the eyes, symbolizes the fact that the ignorance is on purpose, and only those who are in the temple are given the benefit of having the hood removed. But here we are, removing today's hoodwink, the digital filter. So that's the primary mission here. We're going to advance this in the framework for applying skepticism to mediation itself. Again, when I say mediation, and some of these terms are in the book, I'm referring to the processing of our collective concept of reality by ubiquitous media. And it is ubiquitous. This is outside of partisan politics, and this is why 2024 is a great year for this, because as a lot of the mentanol, the hopium addicts, the red pill junkies, they're all going to get swept up in the celebrity worship that we call elections. And while they're busy with that, those of us who are level-headed are going to be aggregating. And that's why this is the perfect year to essentially engage in what it could be considered a tour, a book tour. Promotion for the concept, for the philosophy, for the approach. But it's outside of partisan politics. And instead, this examines the dominant worldview as a model representing the interests of the power elite that control this mediation process. And what Autohoaxology 101 represents, what this textbook represents, is a philosophical posture rooted in objective reality and skepticism. And the default philosophical stance of any mediated worldview is subjective. And this specifically includes objectivism. You know, I bring up objectivism because I study their work, I've read all the books, but I really think that Ayn Rand had something good going with the forum. And that's kind of what we're launching here. So when I say tour, book tour, the IPS think tank going on the road, I'm talking about something analogous to the objectivist forums, where we are more or less publicly discussing very upsetting ideas, triggering ideas. But this isn't the contrived culture war BS. This is deeper than that, and I think it's more important of a conversation. But anyway, the objectivists are not objective because they have all accepted the implicit authority of the screen. And every argument from the screen is a logical fallacy. It's an appeal to authority, which it doesn't have. I mean, it shouldn't have. We've consistently demonstrated that it cannot be trusted as a window to understand events going on far away, but that it has always been a filter. And again, the purpose of this book is to aggregate all those who have already figured out what skepticism means today, because there is no skeptical media among mainstream nor alternative, insofar as both base their essential worldview on the televised, mediated, filtered, augmented version of reality, which I call the digital hoodwink. The media critique we offer here strips away basic assumptions about the validity of any appeal to the authority of the Black Mirror, the approved version of reality. And as they move on with the censorship agenda, and Disease X is a huge part of it, they're going to shrink the world of ideas, which is by design. And this regulation of AI, well, AI isn't really sentient. It's not a threat. They're getting people acclimated to another layer to their hood, to their blindfold, which is outsourcing thinking, the work of intelligence, to a program that will get the information for you, but it's going to exclude anything not put into its frame of reference. So we're going deeper into the Plato's cave, which is a huge kind of clue to where things are going in the movie Leave the World Behind. The whole idea of going deeper into a deception, I think, has a connection in this movie with the character Rose, who goes underground to survive the apocalypse. We'll get into that in just a minute here. But I think basically that's where we are going collectively, deeper into the simulation. But Autohoaxology 101, the book, contains our best ideas and a framework that makes up the core, what you could term an ideology of the IPS think tank. We do not parrot a collection of agreed upon alternate facts. We don't have a litany of fake events upon which we stake our claims. It really all comes down to perspective, not about agreeing on what things are fake and what things are real. It's not like that at all. It's actually based on a perspective. So it all comes down to that. So non-auto-hoaxers, and this includes alt media, they have their faces pressed so close up to the screen that they lack perspective. Conspiracy theorists lose their objectivity when they go through the screen seeking alternative explanations. The auto hoaxers step back from the rush to believe the latest news cycle, these latest narratives or alternative versions, which are both written by the same writers, and they instead opt to suspend judgment, to await more facts, looking at broader patterns, and not limiting their search merely to news, since the news media and the entertainment media are part of a unified and monolithic mind entrapment operation. So, the purpose of this book overall is that this is a vital piece of ammunition for the think tank, and it's about, I think, ready for mass distribution, at least to to insiders, to those of us who are getting on the same sheet, and we can debate the merits of it line by line, bullet point by bullet point, and that's the whole point of taking it out there. But all of the arguments that we make, for example, the takedown of the ISS, will be within the framework proposed in the book. Fake until proven real, fakeability, etc. And there's a lot that goes into it. All right, let me go through your comments. Joined by G33, John Cordone. Dinah South has some recipes for zombie deer. Yeah, I think the zombie virus, the deer thing, might be a reference to Leave the World Behind. Adaptivia in Twitch, Thrustazar in DLive. Tyrone McCloskey says low audio, get closer to the mic or go Alex Jones loud. Is that true? Is the audio low? Joined by Salty Siren, Multi-Zero Dagger. Tonight, the last full moon of the year, it's bright and high AF. I thought the full moon was tomorrow. I'll check my calendar. But I've been following the moon and which sign it's in a little more closely. Diana South says, spelunking for truth in Plato's cave. Exactly. And this is truly a Plato's cave situation. And we're specifically talking about the allegory of the cave and the shadows on the wall, and how when you try to tell them, hey, it's all shadows on the wall, they get mad at you, which is how it is. Now, I don't know if there's any way I can increase the volume, but when I do the archives, I'm actually raising the volume. But I would just say turn your volume up unless it's maxed. It doesn't go beyond the 100% here. Maybe there's an app that I need. You know, when I first started this, the volume was very loud, and I was able to take calls easily through Skype and turn off the ringer. But they destroyed that. They made it so you couldn't turn off the ringer. They destroyed their volume. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of intentional sabotage, which I think is intentional. I think they want to put up higher and higher bars or for people to be heard. All right, let's go through this. So again, you got the books on the way. I sent you notifications via email along with tracking numbers. Press passes are on the way, and then finally, before the end of this month, as in within the next 2 days, I'm ordering the first batch of the IPS Insider. And I decided that the first live symposium, which will be focused on the ISS, is going to be on January the 19th, if you want to mark that down. I chose January the 19th because we have marked that date as especially significant for this specific agenda. Space wars, stuff falling from the sky. And we've discussed at length the significance of that date and the number, its connections to Genesis, Donnie Darko, 9/11, and Leave the World Behind. Well, more recently, the movie ISS has a trailer that was just released, which is supposed to come out on 1/19. Imagine that. So a movie about the ISS, the world getting nuked, a war up in space, same date. Not insignificant. Again, this is getting to the point where, again, we kind of predict, based on patterns, what's going to come around the corner, and we're generally spot on. So I've chosen that date for the first one, and it'll take place here, and I'm going to be inviting a couple of people over, local computer animators from the university. I'm just putting out some notices, and I'm going to be essentially paying people for their opinions. I mean, I would like to have a professional who does computer animation to give an objective opinion about something, not contextualized where it's usually presented. And you're going to see how someone can perceive something and say, oh, that's obviously fake. But then if it comes from a source that has implicit authority, like the screen, aka or NASA, they'll say, oh yeah, obviously that's real, and it's terrible of you to question it. So something happens here. something happens when the perception is overridden by something else. And that something else is this screen, the filter. Okay, so the full moon is tonight. Awesome. 7:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, I was just looking. It's exceptionally bright. Salty says you have a moon bow. Yeah, I've heard the expression chembo for people who don't know how to figure out what the what iridescence is, or they just assume it's all chemicals up there. I do want to specifically focus on the ISS, then the Mandela effect, which we'll probably do in February, and then I want to focus on chemtrails and geoengineering, because I came across something very interesting about this. So someone said, oh, you're saying geoengineering is a hoax because I don't believe in climate change. So I look up geoengineering because I didn't like their framing of their question, because it seemed like equivocation. Like, you're talking about chemtrails, I attack those, and then you say geoengineering. So I look it up, and it turns out geoengineering is actually real, but it has two different definitions. Geoengineering is anything done to combat the effects of climate change. That's pretty much it. And this is the establishment version of it. So geoengineering isn't some conspiracy theory whatsoever. It's just been appropriated by conspiracy theorists. So here's the definition. It's a term used for both carbon dioxide removal and solar radiation management. There you go. Geoengineering is a deliberate large-scale intervention to counteract climate change. So my point being, this is what I find interesting, is that on the left, climate change is real and geoengineering stops it. On the conspiracy theory side, which isn't always specifically right, but it's the opposite of the left, they believe in chemtrails, which is really just geoengineering, but they think geoengineering is climate change. So you get it? One side thinks climate change is real, geoengineering is the cure, and the other side thinks climate change is fake, but geoengineering is actually causing the damage that we call climate change. So one thinks that the cure is the cause. Very interesting. But they both accept the premise that man is destroying the world, which is the objective. All right, moving on. That's a topic we'll deal with here. And every month we're going to hit another topic. Every month we're going to focus on one specific thing and walk out of it, exit the debate, the conversation, more informed and with more bad arguments exposed, revealed, and good arguments advanced. And I'll be bringing the best experts that I possibly can in each of these. And of course, we'll be putting all our findings into print, into the IPS Insider. And I think this is necessary to combat what's happening right now with Twitter, with X. All the clickbait truthers, which is the main thing. Somebody will post a 5-second video of a 5G tower with a bunch of birds on it that are sleeping, and they'll say, oh look, why are these birds dead? And they get 10 million hits, they get a bunch of clicks, they buy a Bugatti, and all they're doing is spamming with just some irrelevant nonsense with no context. So it's a lot of paid spammers, and it's some kind of Ponzi scheme. I don't know what you have to do to get monetized, but it's not a level playing field. For example, Infinite Plane Society's Twitter account isn't allowed to use spaces, and it's a guarantee they will never let us get monetized. And that's because, of course, we are kind of toxic. All right, let's get back on my notes here. I don't want to miss anything. Latest cover of The Economist. Oh, this is from May. I missed this one. The Haunting. Donald Trump peeking from behind he's like behind a curtain. From backstage, you only see one eye. A lot of people are aggregating all this creepy Donald Trump Antichrist stuff. In fact, there's a video about Donald Trump being the Antichrist I need to watch. I have a link, and I'll review it, and I'll post a link tomorrow. All right, here we go. Life imitates psyops. U.S. Senator targeted on Christmas activists with Jewish Voices for Peace, Portland chapter, had a die-in on Democrat Senator Ron Wyden's lawn, demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Basically, it's a bunch of activists playing dead in this guy's front yard. And the first time I saw die-ins was the Parkland students playing dead at grocery stores because nobody cared about their little school play. So they had to bring it out into the grocery stores and they would say, "Hey, look, we're dead and it's your fault." It's like, well, no, you're not dead. You're pretending to be dead. And that's not our fault. But it was a sick game, a sick, like staged psychological operation, performance art. But it seems to me that if you just witnessed 15 of your classmates getting massacred, the last thing you're going to do is play dead in a grocery store afterward. That seems like a terrible coping mechanism. Seems like you should probably talk to somebody. But die-ins are a thing, and then you have, I think it's called human, no, it's Extinction Rebellion, which is ironic because they hate people. They want you to go extinct, but they're like, no, we're going extinct. So they go to the museums where the dinosaurs are and they play dead. Again, it's like, who cares? But it's all just histrionics. That's why they break stuff now. We didn't care about the little theater, so they started destroying art and laying in the roads. Anyway, life imitates psyops because look, the fact of it is they're not imitating reality here. We're talking about psyops presented as real, and now the people want to milk this. But if there was real human tragedy here, you wouldn't have people playing dumb. That's really my opinion here. I think that real tragedy speaks for itself. Here's another thing with psyops. This is getting really big. A whole bunch of these right-wing types. Let me see if I have I'll just pull out all my examples. They're all getting swatted right now. MTG swatted. Styx Hexenhammer, another right-wing type, swatted. But they're all getting on the swatting bandwagon, and I think it's all fake. Jack Posobiec, that's right, he was swatted. Fake. But there's clicks in it, so they're all just jumping on the bandwagon. And I thought about it myself. It's like, I should just get swatted. I think I tried it before. I've actually called it out a few times. Tammy McDonald just got swatted, but nobody cares when I get swatted. Now, Styx Hexenhammer, he tagged everyone. Jay Diggs posted this. He has 151,000 followers. New right-wing swatting victim. He said, now Styx Hexenhammer 666 is an obvious Satanist. And somehow he's like a big-time Christian conservative ideologue, but he's a big Trumper. He says, so my home was swatted earlier coincidentally the day I made my video on the subject. Thanks to the local and state police for calling my mother beforehand and doing a basic search and not bashing down the door. Thank you for recording the call. It will be helpful when I sue the perpetrator. Now what I want to do is I want to follow up on every single one of these right-wing swattings, even going back to the Tim Pool swattings. I want to go back because we know some of them are fake. We know this for a fact. We know that Gavin McInnes, founder of the Proud Boys, faked his swatting. That was exposed by Owen Benjamin, who didn't want to play along. And I'm just thinking, if they can't provide evidence, if we can't get a police report, then we're going to call them liars and we're going to publish it in the IPS Insider. I think it's time that we stop treating the psyops as though they're just done by mainstream. All these alt media types are neck deep in psychological warfare against you. He's not just doing it for clicks and money, he's doing it to brainwash people. Again, Tammy McDonald said, I got swatted while hanging out at my home. I'm shaking. They said they caught my husband with another woman and I shot them both. Again, she's atting everybody. Jack Posobiec and other right-wing types. So here's the video that I mentioned earlier. If anybody wants to watch it, it's by nowyou'veseenIttTV.org. Could Donald Trump be the Antichrist? And the more I see this story unfolding, at first I thought it was fringe, but it's not as fringe as JFK Jr. coming back to life. This Donald Trump Antichrist thing does have a basis in predictive programming that is so thick that it's undeniable at this point. And now that I see it being promoted on Tim Pool by anonymous shady characters, there's something to it. And I think it's this. When they do the JFK thing on him, there's going to be a number of interpretations. Russia did it. China did it. The Clintons did it. the Illuminati did it and there was a ritual and here's the ritual. Like there's going to be all kinds of stuff about it. But all of these things will distract from the fact that it's going to be fake. That would be my take on it. So whatever's going to happen, it's fake. Just so you know, pre-auto hoaxing it, fake until proven real. Uh, you don't have enough evidence on day one to say anything is real unless you're there. Unless you can remote view, you can't say, oh, that's real. Prove it's fake. Well, what do you know that we don't know? But there's something to it. It is a big narrative, so we're going to follow along with that. Catching up on your comments here. All right. Oh, really? You don't say? Says, any thoughts on the significance of 47? Yeah, let's bring up the recent 47s. The first time I really noticed this one, and I have a mind map on it. But one of the first things I noticed was Super Bowl 47 was the 33 minutes of darkness originally reported. 47 and darkness. So then this gets interesting because at that Super Bowl, Colin Kaepernick was quarterback. And he is now considered, in my view, in many's view, to be the titular head of BLM. So you have this black and white dialectic already built into the narrative, connected with that number and the phrase blackout. So then, fast forward 10 years later, and we're all talking about the blackout, the Obama movie, and the presidency 47 coming up. And a few things that pop up. One, first I notice hockey player number 47 gets his throat slashed. And they conspicuously point out the race. It's black player slashes a white player, number 47, slashed by number 22. This immediately got me thinking about Donald Trump with the 47 on the side of his head, with his new hat that says 45 and 47, and how this connected, because this was actually 4 days before Abe Shinsu, the one that got shot, Trump's friend got shot days before that shooting, where it was like an assassination. Now, Abe was the former prime minister of Japan. He wasn't currently the prime minister, but it was pretty much like an assassination, and his name Abe, which is like Abe Lincoln. He was assassinated July 8th, 2022. Well, 4 days before this assassination of a Trump friend, you had the shooting at the July 4th parade. Now, this July 4th parade, again, July 7, 7th month, and then 4th of July, so 4 and 7. And the shooter at the 4th of July parade had a 47 tattooed on his head. And he was obsessed with Lee Harvey Oswald. So Robert Crimo, the Highland Park shooting suspect, left an extensive digital footprint, which he frequently referenced the number 47 in. A few things about him. One, Highland Park, Parkland High, JFK went to Parkland Hospital. All kinds of interesting code here with the names and the words, the numbers. But the 47 tattooed on his head, it's on his car. He's a JFK, he's a Lee Harvey Oswald fan, but he had to have been obsessed with the JFK assassination because he kept going to Trump rallies. So here you have a guy, a sniper, going to Trump rallies. Tattooed 47 on his head. This is why the number stood out to me. Then we have this hockey player getting slashed, which I think is fake. Then Derek Chauvin gets stabbed 22 times on Black Friday. So like Derek Chauvin, 47 years old, stabbed 22 times. So the symbolism here is pretty obvious. Black Friday, Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin is part of the black and white dialectic as the representative of Western chauvinism. And you have the Proud Boys, the leader of whom was serving, 22 years? Another 22 for 22 stabbings. But for Derek Chauvin to get stabbed 22 times on a Black Friday ties into this same exact sort of narrative that's been moving forward. Again, 47 in this context seems to imply, I would think, I'm kind of thinking because of the throat slash. It's all very ritualistic. And the number 47 specifically has to do with the third degree in the Masonic Rite, which is the one where the candidate is symbolically killed and then raised from the dead. So that we get into the death and resurrection thing right there. And that is a big part of the JFK assassination, the killing of the king. So again, accused Highland Park gunman Bobby Crimo, July 4th and the 47 stuff. And there's quite a lot more to it. we've delved into the symbolism here, and it connects to Stranger Things and a few other shootings that happened later in the year and in early 2023. Yeah, 47 degrees in the compass and square. I've been talking about that as well. It's just the sun, 23.5 north, 23.5 south during the year. The compass on the Masonic squaring compass. And it also has to do with the squaring of the circle. So you have the circle drawn at the compass, the square for the square, and it symbolizes the soul encased in matter. The circle is the spirit. Yeah, we'll take calls. Now, there's more 47s. Nicholas says, is this guy crazy or not? I'll tell you what, because the consensus view of reality, the agreed upon version of events, is demonstrably false. It's the byproduct of brainwashing. And so, if you're going to ask who's crazy, it's the people who have been turned into superstitious, terrified, Stockholm Syndrome subjects of mind control intergenerationally. They're crazy by definition. And we represent a return to sanity because this is a very dark age. The masses are visually illiterate and they don't even know what that means. They don't know the significance of the fact that they have accepted an implied authority with anything from the screen and that they can no longer discern real from fake from the screen alone. And if your frame of reference is the frame of reference they've given you, yeah, you're in Plato's cave. It's really that simple. My objective here is to turn this applied skepticism into I'll say a philosophical movement in a sense, maybe a trend. But more than that, we're gathering information. We're not ideologues. We're not following behind any politician, which is just celebrity worship these days. If anything, this is an oasis, or as I call it, a raft. That's why you have the penguins on the raft on the screen. If we live in a sea of irrelevance, the only way to maintain any cohesive semblance of sanity really is to integrate. And that's what I say when I say I'm aggregating anybody at this perspective. What I'm really saying is we're integrating. We're creating, expanding into a parallel media. Alt media is fake. It's that simple. And they're all a bunch of controlled opposition agents. And we are going to deal with them through our tabloid, through our reportage. And that's why I want to find out if they're faking their swattings. Because if they're faking their swattings, it should be easy to figure it out. And it just needs to be called out for what it is. All right, let's see. Let's move forward here. Going through my notes, we were going to talk a little bit about Ed McMahon. Ryan Stavely is mad at us. And he actually said a few unkind things. And I'm not offended at all. Because I think it's a conversation that needs to happen. And the fact that somebody is passionate about something and they get mad when somebody doesn't believe it, I don't hold it against them. But the facts are facts. And if I see something that seems to be, we'll say, deceptive, perhaps maybe even employing some of the tactics the mainstream media uses, if something seems like a psyop, I'm going to call it out as a psyop. And I think it's time to have a Mandela effect debate in 2024. And the purpose of this debate is to make progress. So one of two things is going to happen. Either the madness will stop or reality will be declared mad. There can only be one outcome. So what is it? Is reality mad? Is reality fluid, or is the Mandela effect wrong? It's one or the other. We can walk away from this debate with one or the other being true. And I propose that we can settle the matter through a formal debate. Either the Mandela effect exists, or it can be categorically debunked. We don't have to go through every single one, like, yeah, my Oreo cookie wrapper. Well, what about my peanut butter? What about my underwear? What about my VHS science fiction movie that nobody actually ever watched? No, I don't have to go through every single one. Like, I don't have to go through every supposed relic from every reliquary to debunk whether or not the events from the Bible happened literally. Like, we know what relics are, we know what fake miracles are. And what I'm suggesting here is that either the Mandela effect exists and reality is, as they say, it's kind of, it's Mandelaed, or it can be debunked categorically and documented as just another belief system that fails to live up to its supernatural claims. So this debate isn't on the existence of the supernatural. Like, I'm not trying to say there is no supernatural. They call me a God blocker because they say I'm killing the spiritual path to transcendence or something. And that's not the case. Not at all. I'm just questioning, is this a supernatural phenomenon? Is it a miracle? Are these Mandela effects examples of reality fluidity? And by the way, I coined the term reality fluid and they ran with it. Now they call themselves, I said, hey, you guys are trans-dimensional reality fluid. We have to be tolerant of you, even if we don't agree. And I said it to be somewhat facetious because they were pretty much like fighting for their identity and their right to not be mocked and ridiculed. And so I'm like, fine, get your own little special group and we'll treat you as as trans-dimensional reality fluid. Now they call themselves reality fluid and they don't give me credit. Anyway, I accuse them of being poor researchers all the time because they emphasize consensus over facts, which is typical of religious cults. But this is an example of what I consider to be a self-own. So here you have Mandela effect popularizer, Ryan Stavely, and he's laughing at my explanation for the Ford logo's loopy T. Let me play this clip and then we'll explain what I mean here, because like I say, we don't have to debunk every single claim, but I've done it. And this shows that they don't even research the counter to their claims. So he never heard of the origin story for the loop on the Ford logo and immediately laughed at it. They're such poor researchers.
Have you guys ever heard of such a fucking... Oh my god. I don't even know what to say, dude. The Ford logo is not a Mandela effect. It's meant to look like a T and an E on the tail end of the F because Henry Ford and Thomas Edison's were fucking best friends, dude.
All right, well, let me read this. Just after Edison's death, his son, Charles, noticed test tubes in the room where Edison passed away. He had one sealed up, considering it to hold his father's last breath, and he gave it to his best friend, Henry Ford. How's that for a storybook ending? Thomas Edison and Henry Ford were both iconic inventors and, quote, best friends. These two men had the ultimate friendship. Yeah, so this is a really popular story about how they were BFFs forever. They had homes on both sides of the country they visited. And the Ford logo does have Thomas Edison's initials encoded or disguised in there with a little loop for the E if you look in closely. This is not a new story. But the fact is, I brought it up and he laughed at it instead of researching it. It took me 8 seconds to find this one. Lean Dion says he's so gross on the mic all the time. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, that's just his style. A lot of people like it. Thrustazar says that's just Jersey. yeah, yeah, he's got kind of a potty mouth, but I'm not even critical of him. Actually, I like him. I think he's great. I think he does good work and he works very hard at this. I don't think that being debunked means the end of the road. Like, for example, if you were to show me a convincing picture of the Earth from space spinning around and it didn't look like obvious CGI crap, yeah, I would concede. But in this case, there's more than enough evidence to debunk all these claims, or enough of them to really throw a doubt on the basic premise, and they will not go there. I would even question if it's falsifiable. But my point of it is, if we were able to debunk this thing, does it mean that he needs to stop talking about it? No. I think you have to move on and maybe there's something behind it, and I do think there's something behind it. I've always thought of the Mandela effect as a gatekeeper operation to prevent serious analysis of synchronicity. Synchronicity is distinct from alleged Mandela effects, which are retroactive changes of an object or an event. If anything, the Mandela effect is like the dollar store synchronicity for people who haven't read Carl Jung. But I think it can lead to that. You can read the original Mandela Effect archives if you want, if you get the book, The Mandela Effect from Fiona Broome, and you can see how it originated. It started off at a party, because it is a party trick. But more importantly, you can read the original forums. Here's a description. 244 comments, 178 comments, 299 comments. Fiona has published dozens of books with 10,000 comments describing readers' Mandela effect experiences. But what's more, it says, her most popular book is the one with hundreds of theories and explanations provided by readers at the time. Discover where the evidence began. In 2012, at the original Mandela Effect website. So at the very place where it began, you can see it started with loaded questions, false binaries, and plenty of ad populum claims. That's where it started. So if its very beginning was false binaries, and of course, ad populum claims everybody knows, it never improved. It never became an authentic method for assessing the facts of reality or exploring the seeming inconsistencies whatsoever. It's always been large unsubstantiated claims, and it came out of a party held by Fiona Broome, who's a ghost hunter and necromancer. So what I'm thinking here is we need a time-constrained, moderated debate in 2024, and we can shine a light on this. So my question is the Mandela effect a path to God or malware for the mind? Let me play this clip.
Answer of what their memory is, and then time and time and time and time and time and time and time again, everybody has the same exact memory of things in which never existed, backed up by hundreds of years of physical evidence that corroborates it all. Sorry, this doesn't fit in your paradigm. Maybe you were just never meant to see.
Maybe I was never meant to see. Exactly. This is like the Emperor's New Clothes. I'm not sophisticated enough to see. Specifically, though, they said about me is that I am fully aware of the Mandela effect, but that my task in life from the Illuminati is to stop people from seeing it, to keep you trapped here in the Matrix, which is pretty dark. Like this isn't just clickbait grifting on Twitter. This is me working to imprison your immortal soul for another cycle. That's some pretty shady stuff. I'm in the God blocking business.
Maybe God doesn't want assholes like you. That's an honest.
All right. Well, I don't know if he'll take the invitation to debate with me. Not with that attitude, but I would be willing to. We'd have to set some rules forth, like, hey, no ad hominem. All right, let's see what else we have here. Nicotrama says, too bad he couldn't debate Matt at QOC. He's not nearly as abrasive. Oh, I'd like to debate him, actually. And it wouldn't even be a debate. It'd be a conversation. I mean, he's really good at noticing the patterns, and he's put out some great content, specifically on the Abraham Lincoln JFK connections. So I would certainly like to converse with him about this and maybe get to an understanding of the Mandela effect. But I happen to think that, well, I happen to know the truth about it. And the people who believe otherwise are welcome to believe in Mandelers if they want to. All right, here's a picture of Henry Ford, and he's snuggling up against Thomas Edison. Again, they are best friends. So there has to be a debate. We'll make that happen. Uh, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I was just swatted this morning on Christmas Day, and on the 21st we received a death threat where a man was saying that I will be shot and skinned to make a parasol, making a reference to Gein, who was a psychopath and killer who would. Oh, yeah, he was Ed Gein. Psycho is based on him, and so was Buffalo Bill. And he was the guy who was denied a sex change because of his mental states, his mental health, and he was instead put. He wore the skin of women that he killed and taxidermied, basically. If you believe the stories, that's a Wisconsin serial killer. So a parasol's like an umbrella. Who wants to make an umbrella out of her? Well, somebody does. So here's some actual messages from her antagonizer. Ben McLean said, Hey, you want to fight an enemy of the ex-president? I'm here. Just a message. I'm curious. Oh, how big of a parasol the skin from your girlfriend's blank blank would make? Oh, these are terrible messages. Now, here's your free speech absolutists suddenly turning tail on the whole concept. Too much free speech. And they're really big on this statue that Michael Cassidy destroyed, the satanic statue, Halloween decorations. They're going to start burning Halloween decorations next. They're trying to ramp up the holy war rhetoric here. Okay, so Ben McLean has not been arrested yet. They called him on the phone and the Capitol Police sent him a message. Now, this is what she claims, and I want to see evidence of this. She says, I've been swatted 8 times, and the FBI can't seem to figure out who's responsible, and says the law doesn't allow them to track them down. The FBI can... Oh, so we're not going to be able to find out if it's fake or not. Chris Becker says, you're addicted to playing the victim. Is there a police report, or are you lying again? Exactly. This is where we're going to do an IPS deep dive on all of these. So if you want to get involved, let me know, and we'll pull our information together on a shared document, and we'll do our best to track down information about every single one of these. And if they're not forthcoming about it, we'll make a record. In fact, we'll get a petition for Tim Pool to share evidence that he was actually swatted, for MTG, for fill in the blank, right-wing, click-starved social media influencer. Does anybody believe it? Yeah, Ed Gein, that's like classic, vintage serial killer lore. Very influential in his field of endeavor. Probably inspired a lot of music videos, a lot of heavy metal, a lot of horror characters. Even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, definitely inspired by Ed Gein. I don't even think he would qualify as a serial killer, though. Very bizarre, though. I mean, we're talking about a guy who wore... If it's all real, I mean, I'm inclined to think a lot of this stuff is likely fake simply because of the source. Sensationalization. They sensationalize things. They sell paper. If it bleeds, it leads. Or if it skins the neighbors and dances in their skin in the moonlight, it leads. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. How are things going over there? Good holidays?
Oh, yeah, it was nice. Yeah, I was just thinking about that 47 thing earlier today, and you brought up a whole bunch more that I didn't even realize. So, that 47-minute video from October 7th, I've only seen 2 people talk about it, Chris Cuomo and that Michael Rappaport dude. He's always freaking out about something. But they both brought up the video being 47 minutes, and it seems like you have to go to Israel to watch it. But I don't know where you can find the actual video.
But they
could have cropped it to any time.
They specified 47 minutes. I didn't know that.
In both of the videos, yeah, they're both, I don't think they're in conjunction with each other, but they're both talking about the same video, and it sounds like you have to, go there and get tickets to watch the brutal 47-minute video, and they keep comparing it to 9/11 and the Holocaust, and I was like, "What's up with this 47?"
Here it is.
And then I just got curious, and I was like, October 7th happens to be the 280th day. That's 40 times 7. And I guess in Judaism, the number 47 is like, it translates to Ben, which means son. It's like really interesting, and I just don't know what they're forecasting with it.
Okay, it's called Bearing Witness, and it's a 47-minute film that shows the atrocities, and it says here that people in the theaters were not allowed to take pictures of it. So yeah, they specified 47 minutes. They definitely made this the number, kind of like 846 for the George Floyd. I know that Building 7 is 47 stories, another thing to add. What else do you take off this one? Because yeah, that's definitely an important symbol here. It stands out.
I don't know. It's hard to feel accurate with dates because I don't know if our calendar is correct. Like we're using a wrong metric. Like September through December are all, metric system. Like 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all represented with the root word of the month. So our calendar's all screwed up, so I don't even know if we're using the correct math to see what they're doing. But it just seems weird that the 280th day happens to be October 7th and the 47-minute video.
Okay, that actually is an interesting connection. And this is something, the hockey player who was slashed, the guy who was charged with involuntary manslaughter was arraigned with 47 days left in the year. And on that day, it was like 47 points blocked by a goalie, 47 minutes. It gets insane with these numbers. So that can't be a coincidence that the 280th day of the year, 10/7, would contain that.
Right. That it's really weird. Maybe they're using these as like stage props on the world stage just based on this calendar. I just don't know why they would change it from a numerical, what would make sense, like 7, 8, 9, and 10. Like we've rotated our calendar just like we've rotated our clock. Got rid of the 13th month, makes it not work out with the perfect moon cycle anymore. I just don't know the purpose of it.
Okay, now that's interesting.
I think rotating the clock has a purpose. I think I figured out why is, daylight used to start at 1 and end at 12, and then the night clock started at 1 and ended at 12. That makes sense to me. Rotating at 90 degrees would make sense that they were trying to combine and make it a duality.
Yeah, look, it's clear to me that the occult calendar, or rather the pagan calendar, it has a full accounting for the lunar cycle as well. It just seems like the masses are focused on one aspect of this reality, which is the exoteric, and then you have the esoteric. And this is always, in Jungian symbolism, it's the sun and the moon, the solar and the lunar. And the lunar is the unconscious, the dark, whereas the solar is the logical and the light. And I think what they have done as part of their their imposed ignorance is they've kept the public only on one side of it. So we're not actually meant to be perfectly aligned. We're not meant this is what, the more I look at the pagan stuff, the more it's clear that it's all about celestial alignments, timing, and observations that recognize the intrinsic timing between and the correspondences between our lives down here and the cycles above. Specifically the agrarian stuff. But my point of it is, this stuff does matter, and they've probably bumped us off of perfect harmony on purpose.
Right. It's always been confusing, and it felt unnatural for the day to change at midnight. It just seems like the next day would be the next day, and rather than put half of a day and half of a night combined into one day, split the night in half and split the day in half. But it makes more sense looking at all of the other things that have been two turned into one, like the Twin Towers came back as one, and they're trying to make male and female be the same thing, like combining all of the binaries into, a monolith everywhere you look.
Oh, okay, that's exactly true. And the corona symbol associated with the Stanley Kubrick 2001, which foreshadowed 9/11. The sun and the moon combined is the two into one, and it's kind of contained here with what I was describing, the subconscious and the conscious mind. That's how Jung uses the symbol. But I think it means also the combining of the movie world with the real world, how they have combined the two. But yeah, it's alchemy. It's alchemy. It's the two into one is multiple in its level in its meanings. It has multiple layers to it. But as far as the even the gender thing,
Right.
that was something that was talked about as early as like if you look at 1904, Aleister Crowley's book, which is the basis for the Thelemic cult. They talked about the New Age, where the god would be destroyed and the goddess. It's iconoclasm, and the replacement would be the child androgen Horus. So the idea is that, of course, the destruction of the binary is actually encoded into this new paradigm. So when I saw this stuff coming up about pronouns and the explosion of genders, I was like, this is very consistent. It's coming from the same ideology that brought us the sexual revolution, modern feminism, and the destruction of the nuclear family. It's all part of this preparation for the new age, the age of Mars.
Odd that they would use the word Horus. That's where hours on the clock got their name from, the myth of Horus.
Oh yeah, it's even a perfect
But
anagram for hours, isn't it?
yeah, um, I think it went something like he walked across the sky with 12 steps, and that's how they developed a 12-hour clock. I don't know.
You mean
But speaking of like
like
the world,
walking, like Luke Skywalker walking across the sky? Exactly. That's pretty much the story with all these sun gods. It's their fight against the darkness, and they lose every day, and they start over again.
right? And it's a Illuminati symbol that everybody that represents gold, like overly represents gold, is just kind of making a reference to the sun worship. Like the that would be like their biggest motive for potentially lying and saying the sun is bigger and more powerful than it really is. If they worship it, that would make total sense that they would expand it and exaggerate it, like every religion does with their ultimate worship.
Yeah, absolutely. And this new age concept, the great work of the ages or the great work, it ties into the great reset as well, and the great awakening. And so what I'm thinking is like the entire progressive movement. If you look at progressivism, it's the exoteric version or the exoteric aspect of this new age mindset that they're instituting, and a lot of the things they've set up for destruction, like the concept of the like toxic masculinity. Why is that even a thing? It's part of iconoclasm. It's they're attacking the idea of the patriarchal sun god as they replace it with the child. And the symbolism of the child is that they don't have a frame of reference that involves tradition. They're like a clean blank slate. And this is why they brought out Greta to explain this dramatic need for change while impugning the past generations. When she said, "How dare you?" it was specifically to the older people who ruined the world. And the idea that Greta would be some kind of authoritative voice seems like a joke, but this is what they're leading to. They're saying, hey, the past, your parents, they screwed up. You guys take over. And of course, the child is a pawn in the hands of the ones who control the child.
Right. And speaking of like the world stage and exaggerating that politics is a stage, did you see the Tucker Carlson Christmas thing where he interviewed Kevin Spacey, but Kevin Spacey played his character from House of Cards?
Yeah,
The whole interview.
I think it's nauseating. I think Kevin Spacey's character, his real life impersonations, it's nauseating because it's like he's trying not to be himself, so we can't call him out for being a groper and whatever else he's accused of. And I think it's really strange that so many of the people that accused him have seemingly come to bad ends. And he's already been targeted by the QAnoners as being close to Clinton's, friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. A lot of them think that he was already executed, and that here he is hanging out with their hero Tucker. It's very perplexing. I mean, what do you make of that?
I don't know. I saw like somebody zoomed in on the pillow and made some kind of a connection to the Epstein Island design on the building, and I don't know exactly how far to even read into it, but it seems like they're just you know laughing in our face that we know it's a stage, and they're just entertaining us with it anyway. And there's really nothing anybody can do about it except acknowledge it and give them credit for at least being honest,
Yeah, he did
showing us
say
how
that.
fake it is.
Yes, he did specifically say things get interesting when you mix the real and the fake. I mean, he alluded to that, and I thought, is this some kind of duper's delight from the side of the people that are manipulating reality? And I think so. And I think that they get off on it. I think this is the elite, the power elite, and how they gloat because they know that we're ignorant sheep compared to them.
Right. I mean, the entertainment is it looks like because of the things happening on the global stage, like the world stage, whether or not we get into World War III over this, you know, anything could spark us being in World War III. But looking at our major political parties right now and the alliances that they're choosing, they're literally tearing each other apart into about four pieces. There's like half of Republicans that strongly support Israel, but they also strongly like hate Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and they never want to make that connection that they were working on behalf of Israel. And then you got the left that has really nothing in common with their lifestyle and Palestine, but they're supporting Palestine, and the older Democrats are still supporting Israel, and the two candidates that are most likely to win are both supporting Israel. So it's kind of a weird frenzy that's happening with people against each other. Interesting to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, the left by default, and this includes pretty much any university student, they will see things in the Marxist class warfare, oppressor and oppressed framework, and they will always side with the oppressed. So the poor are victims of the rich. Immigrants are victims of the people on the other side, and so they will always side with the victims. It's just a posture. It's all virtue signaling. And yeah, I wouldn't want to be a politician having to walk that tightrope there because the right conservatives, conservative Christians want to embrace Israel, but then if you go further right, Nick Fuentes territory, they hate Jews, and the whole party is going further right. So they're having this like internal struggle. Are they going full blown Nazi, or are they going to remain conservative? And personally, I don't think that they have any real connection to conservatism. So I expect them to. I don't know what's going to happen in 2024, but it's definitely, like you said, entertaining.
I don't know. I think it's a major shuffle. I think people are so strong about this, new division that it might actually like slough off on, both sides might actually slough to other parties, or it might just be a huge write-in year where people just get pissed off at, two people that are pretending to be opposite but are actually supporting some of the same things.
Well, watch the truthers who are quick to call everything fake. How in 2024 they're all going to become world stagers by default. And one of the points that I'm making here is that if you're on the political horseshoe, if you're on that continuum, you're a world stager. And our perspective of skepticism actually would be outside of that. And so 2024 is going to be a great year to reveal where people are in terms of their relationship to truth versus deception, and we're going to see who's really in love with the lie and the clickbait reality, which is just a bunch of fragmented, incoherent clips, all bias confirmation. It's just junk, mind junk for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of mind blown that Alex Jones wasn't allowed to, question whether or not an event was real. And that, I guess that's the main thing that he got in trouble for, right? Is just not believing it publicly on his show with millions of people that viewed it.
His job is to remain stupid. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful to him, but his job is to not see the forest for the trees and to make sure nobody else does. His job is to keep truthers stupefied. Because if they were to see the big picture, that both sides politically, the media left and right, and globally, are all part of the Psy War, it would be game over. So his job is to make it seem like some events are faked, but they're all otherwise real. And he made a mistake questioning this one. But the fact of it is, of course, we're looking at one event in a succession of dozens that were all executed by the same agencies. And he could have unraveled the whole thing, but it would have been a bipartisan unravel. It wouldn't have just destroyed the left. It would have destroyed the left and right's media, and they can't have that. It reveals that he's part of the process, and his job again is to keep people from seeing the big picture. And here we are, clear cutting the forest of misinformation, and he's paying greatly because of the one hill that he chose to, to die on here. And even then, he backed away from it. He never stuck to the truth, and he doesn't offer a way
He,
to find truth whatsoever when it comes to these school shootings.
yeah, it only became a mistake when he announced that it was a mistake and retracted what he said. But I think that the bigger part of this story is that they're using him as a symbol of like you're not allowed to go against what we tell you is true. Like I think that's more of a First Amendment issue than whatever he does for entertainment for his audience. I
Well,
mean,
wait,
it happens here all the time.
he's a
Like,
fake he's a fake canary in the coal mine because it's never been about First Amendment or free speech because that's terms of service
Mhm.
violations. When Tucker brought him in and said this is the most censored man in America, I'm thinking, what do you mean? Literally everybody knows who he is. He's been on every podcast, on every show. He is the representative of anybody that goes into conspiracies. He's got a TV show, Inside Job, that mocks him. To say he's been censored is a joke. You never hear the truly censored. They don't even make it to the world stage. And so they've been playing this role for some time that he's rogue and he's trying to fight the system and he's being attacked and he's fighting. And who still believes it? If anybody still believes that in 2023, they probably still think wrestling is real. And I'm kicking off 2024 on this Autohoaxology um, track where we're not even entertaining these silly possibilities anymore. We're just drawing a line between those who've seen through it and those who have not. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good year for what we're doing because so many people will be distracted by the World Wrestling Entertainment politics.
well, it seems like what they're doing is they're trying to. It's borderline communism where they're literally capping somebody. They're making somebody afraid to have too many followers and not believe something, publicly. Like he's the only reason why they sued him for defamation is because one, they had plenty of funding to be able to just, throw money at the lawyers to sue him, and two, because he had enough followers where they could actually make a case that the people that were upset by it were, defamed to the point of damage. And you wouldn't have that case go the same way with a smaller platform doing the same thing. It's only because he's big that it worked, that they sued him for how many billion or
Right,
whatever.
right, right.
It just
And
seems
look,
like they're scaring people.
I have to point out that anybody who thinks that the lawsuit was real or that the trial was real, they think wrestling is real. Like they live in a fantasy. And he's a character. I know he's entertaining, but I think he also gets way too much airtime for how little he's actually offered. Other than as being a heel for the mass media to attack legitimate truth seekers, he hasn't proffered any bit of information that's been relevant. He's been entertaining, and that's it. That's literally it. But then he's also concealed a lot of things. What does he know about Ollie Alexander grabbing the crotch of Owen Schroyer? What does he know about the blackmail circle? What does he know about Q? Why is he holding that back? Like, I'm looking at him as very suspect, and he holds key information that if his true believers, if he still has any, true believers, not people who listen to him for the entertainment, if they knew that he knows Q, he would lose his credibility if he didn't just drop that information, and yet he's holding that information.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more value in the content that I've gotten from him is like the meme songs that come out, like "Turn the Frogs Gay" and stuff like that. I do give him credit for being one of the OGs of like jump starting the um, video radio combo broadcasting. He was one of the first ones to like do that
Sure, sure. And
before
one
we
thing
had all
though,
the
one thing
streaming.
about certain pioneers, like you can look at certain people like, oh, they're cutting edge and they were fighting the fight and then they changed. And I think it's important to remember that mass media was always monolithic. And it used to be more tightly controlled, or at least it seemed to be, but it's still as controlled. But anybody who was put out there to be rogue was obviously controlled. For example, you could look at Rush Limbaugh. He's a product of the fairness doctrine being repealed, and suddenly the AM dials opened up, and he emerges. So it looks like, oh, he pioneered this uh, political speech on the AM radio waves, but he was never rogue. He was always controlled opposition to the Clintons. He was always controlled opposition to the Democrats, and he was never a voice for truth, even though he called himself the mayor of Realville. It was only truth within their fictional universe.
Well, yeah, and there's another strange thing happening that I've noticed, like the behavior between Republicans and Democrats when they're trying to say the same thing, they just use different justifications for it. It seems like when that leaked phone call came out, it was like the director of the Anti-Defamation League, and he was like really concerned that there's not a red and blue divide for support of Israel. It's a young versus old divide, and they were extremely like nervous about how that's going to work with future voters. And then shortly after that, you had Christy Nome go on Fox News saying all this stuff about China. If you're using TikTok, you're helping China destroy the country. And it's like TikTok is a youth, you know, younger crowd, and that's like the younger crowd is what they're afraid of, not supporting Israel enough. So they're going to say that China is behind it and we need to ban it. And then the Democrats are also saying the same thing, except they're not blaming China.
Right. Isn't it interesting how these platforms get categorized politically? Like Reddit is where you go to get radicalized to be a shooter of Christian right-wing children, and Discord is where you go if you want to be a mass shooter of racial minorities. Like they're making these arguments. Nikki Haley's like, every half hour that you watch TikTok, you become 17% more anti-Semitic. They actually said that at a debate,
Right,
and I'm like, okay. And people believe this stuff. We laugh, but people believe it.
right. I think it was that Fetterman, the Festerman or whatever. He was like all of the young liberals got him elected, and then they started like the content, the comedy of him having like stumbling with reading and stuff came came out shortly after that. He's just kind of like brain damaged, and then he was completely coherent, and then saying, you know, we got to get rid of TikTok and we got to support Israel, but he's like literally going 180 degrees against the people that voted him in, and agreeing with Christy Nome, which they don't agree on anything but Israel. During that Christy Nome interview, she also said that Kissinger was a strong leader and people should be talking about his life and his quotes at the dinner table. That was the weirdest shit I've ever heard.
Right. Well, speaking of Fetterman, Fetterman is quite obviously Ashton Kutcher in a bald cap playing this role. I'm like 90% because they both cry while they're talking in the same way. But you gotta check it out. It's really you can't unsee Ashton Ashton Kutcher in that face. But these
We'll
this
check it out.
yeah, the youth politics, yeah, it's all about symbols, and it's very shallow, and it's all brainwashed. It's all brainwashes. It's like a religious cult that we're watching, and I'm glad that I'm not taking part. If anything, I'm kind of more like an anthropologist here. But this is gonna be an
Oh,
interesting year, 2024.
that's
Thanks for
inspirational.
calling in. Any other comments here?
Yeah,
We're at
thank
the
you.
end of the year. Anything on 2023 that you? What's your big takeaway from 2023 if you have one?
Well, I'm glad we survived. I think the biggest thing that we're like the stupidest about in this country is that we keep adding more technology and more computer chips and more convenience to everything, becoming more and more vulnerable to one EMP. I mean, can't they just make a simple car anymore? Like, you have to pay extra for the factory to take off all of the electronics. And nobody thinks about that. Everything just shuts down if we ever did have an EMP. But they keep adding more chips to the point that we'll defend Taiwan because we need more chips.
Interesting point there, and I think that's an intentional, deliberate vulnerability that they are putting into our system here so they can justify some kind of mass reset. Anyway, thanks for the call, and call back anytime.
Thank you. See you.
All right, excellent call. Talked about the number 47 and a lot of other things as well. Salty had asked Tim, do you really think some celebs know what's really going on? Or do you think that's only saved for the powers that be? That's a very good question. I think it's on a need-to-know basis, and we can kind of determine by the level of the PSYOP how much in the know they are. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Infinite Plane, it's me, Richie from Moab. I just figured I'd come on and wish you all a happy Saturnalia, because we all know Jesus' birthday is September 11th, and so on and so forth, but I digress. I'm headed out now to Lynn, Massachusetts for no reason, because I live in Moab. How are you guys?
All right, well, yeah, Richie, thank you for calling. Happy holidays and all that stuff. And to answer your question, you had just brought something up here. I'm sorry, I got distracted by someone in the comments here.
Is it Jake the Asshole? I want to wish him a happy Saturnalia as well.
Yeah, you know, Jake the A-hole does these impersonations of Richie from Boston. Very, very convincing. We ought to have a battle of the Richies. A battle of the Richies. Let the audiences vote.
It's Richie with a T. I have no relation to Richie from Boston. I don't know who he is.
I want to see who can.
Every time I go to Lynn, Massachusetts, he goes to Moab.
I think Jake the A-hole could out Richie you.
Tell him to call in. We'll have a Richie-thon. Anyway, I digress. All Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year. Thanks for the call. Jennifer Reeves says Massachusetts shout out.
That's right. I don't know why I go there, because I'm from Moab. Bye-bye, IPS.
All right, thanks for the call. No, actually, it is really impressive, Jake the A-holes. Yes. I've heard a few impersonations, and weirdly, all of the Richie from Boston impersonations are actually better than Richie is, which is kind of perplexing. Yeah, but to get back to the question about how much in the know, I can point out some examples. Like David Hogg, for example. He doesn't know space is fake. No way. These various aspects of the Psy War are compartmentalized. Space faking, fake shootings, celebrity psyops. They're all in on it at various levels, but they don't all know. Do you remember when Cardi B said something about coronavirus and said it was all about the money? And she said, if this is a hoax, you better cut me in. And then she shut up about it being a hoax. And then she started selling, I believe, PCR tests. So my point being, she didn't know, and then someone let her know. I think it's on a need-to-know basis. Another example, Senator Mark Kelly. We're talking about an astronaut who gets into politics, whose wife gets fake shot in a fake shooting. So fake shooting, fake space, fake politics. Okay, you're sharing the backstage with all three. So they're in the know at multiple levels, which means they're not fooled by any part of it because they have that level of security clearance. And I think the people that are higher up that have more knowledge, people like Kevin Spacey perhaps, they might enjoy their position because it's a privileged position to be in the know about the weaponized superstition that keeps the masses dumbed down, controllable, and ignorant. which is why what we're doing is so interesting, considering that we aren't compartmentalized. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Happy New Year, Tim.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for calling.
All right, sorry, I meant to say Happy Holidays. I screwed up the junk. Um, do you have any? Did you do anything for the holidays?
I don't have a specific thing I do every year, although this year I was going to go check out this pagan observance of Yule, but my truck couldn't make it. It was raining too heavy, and I wasn't going to risk driving into the Jemez Mountains and getting stuck in the mud. But out of all the
What's
religion, but
Yule? Like Yule? Yule?
yes, yes. So it was
Yeah.
basically a solstice ritual, and then they followed that up with some kind of. It was described to me as an observance, and I was invited to it, but again, I couldn't make it. But I've been taking a look very closely at the quote pagan underpinnings of mainstream holidays, and it's all of them.
Uh, yeah, I've been seeing Yule in a lot of videos lately. So I don't even know where that came from. So that's a pagan holiday thing.
Yeah,
Do you have any
I think Richie from Boston said Saturnalia, but yeah, the Germanic thing was it is Yule. There's like Yule, there's winter solstice, there's Christmas, but yeah, the pagan winter solstice thing is Yule.
Do you have any January Fool's Day resolutions?
My resolutions are basically goldfinch's head on a silver platter. That'd be one.
Oh shit.
There's a few other things I have in mind, but for the most part, it's that, and then the IPS think tank's cyber symposium is going on the road. The think tank. We're going to do a bit of a
Like
U.S. book tour.
there's like my thing I was calling into people. I'm like 2024, predict it and quit it. So do you have like a prediction for 2024 and one thing that you want people to quit doing?
Good
Predict it
question.
and quit it.
Okay, what would I want people to quit doing? No, I really couldn't say, but I do have a prediction.
Well, the head on the pike. You can't do the head on the pike, like a normal, like for the normal people.
I said silver platter.
Because a lot of people don't know MG. A lot of people don't know MG.
They don't yet, but they will, because I don't know if you know this, but there's actually a court date. I should have mentioned this. I have a hearing date against Google, YouTube, and MG, Civil Unlimited, on May the 13th. On May the 13th.
I mean, like, do you know how many news stations there are out there? I think you might be able to find one reporter if you just call every single news station. I think someone will pick up the story.
I'm going to let it get picked up organically. I've sent out enough press releases. I've notified enough people. But when the news gets out that a political operative working for Trump is being sued alongside Google for federal cybercrimes, it will raise some eyebrows, specifically on the Democrat left.
Oh, hey, you want to do a friendly bet? I'll bet you, whatever you can name the price, that the ISS falls before MG's head falls.
Okay. The ISS
Want to do a friendly
movie.
bet?
Yeah, well, let's put a date on it. If you think the ISS is going to fall this year, I mean, hopefully Tom Cruise gets up there first, but what date do you think it'll happen?
No, like it's already in the books that they want to pull it down. I think like 2028. I think like is like the last thing I heard. Maybe 2030. Between 2028 and 2030, they're already planning to pull it down.
Wait, let
So
me bring
I
this
was
up really
just
quick.
curious.
You know that the ISS isn't up there. For the people listening, we're talking about a simulation in a movie, but they're going to, quote, bring it down in a few years.
I think it's up there. I think it's up there.
You believe in the spaceship?
I believe in the augmented reality when I point my phone up into the air and I see a shadow. I think that's it.
So you have, but you believe in spaceships then? Like you believe that there's astronauts on a spaceship orbiting above your head right now?
It's hard for me to disprove that it's up there when I haven't. Okay, I haven't personally seen it, but I
Well, look,
mean,
it's really hard to disprove unicorns. Can you do that?
a lot of people say unicorns were real at one point. So that's kind of a bad example. But I understand where you're getting at.
It's the same thing.
I
It's an
haven't seen
argument
it.
but you've never seen it, but you believe in it. Do you believe it? What else do you believe in
Yeah,
that you haven't seen?
no, it's like where was the lunar wave and the ISS transiting like in the same like someone that like watched the moon for years and years and years and never observed the ISS transit. It's kind of weird.
I just think
So
it's
it's kind of
interesting that look, I'm not a person of faith and I'm a non-believer. And what I'm doing with Autohoaxology is I am fomenting a culture of disbelief. And I'm getting all of the disbelievers on one side of the screen and we're going to critique the believers on the other side. And if you believe in space stations, you are on the other side of the screen, just pointing it out. We come from a different place philosophically. Like you will not catch me believing in magic spacecraft without evidence.
all right, because of you, you keep bringing it up. Because of you, like 3 weeks ago, I downloaded the app, and I've been trying to look and see it, but it's always like it was cloudy one night, and then the next night it was like 3 hours after I needed to go to bed. So I was like, "There's not going to do it."
What
Like
time do
it's
you go to
not.
bed? What time do you go to bed?
It's normally it's late. It's when it's dark, and I'm not going out there when it's like dusk and I'm like seeing the reflection or something. Like I want to see the silhouette of it pass over the moon.
Well,
And then when
wait,
you
wait, that
say
doesn't count.
that,
Sorry, that doesn't count. If you're seeing the silhouette in front of the moon, it means you have no eyewitness because you can't see the ISS at night. The only way you would detect it is if you were able to get a camera to see it as it passes the moon, but even then, there's not an eyewitness. So you're not an eyewitness if you haven't seen it, and those transit videos are all debunkable and fakeable, and Jaren's video is obviously fake.
oh, well,
Santa, do you
yeah,
believe in
like
Santa? Somebody wants to know, do
that's,
you believe in Santa? Because there's an app where you can see Santa.
Santa crossed over a lot of cities this year. So I mean, if you watch the videos, but I mean, I find it hard to believe that you couldn't see the silhouette if like, well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at it myself. But I have the app, but
Wait,
it's kind of weird.
do you see what I mean, though? When I say that
It's not as simple.
we come from a different place philosophically where your reality is augmented by the rumors or whatever they say on the screen, and I'm not accepting that without it being shown to me tangibly in the real world. So what I'm saying is that your frame
Uh,
of reference has been filtered through the black mirror, which makes you superstitious. It makes you a
My
believer.
New Year's resolution is I'm going to try to observe the ISS transiting
You've been saying
while
this
it's
for
still
two
up there.
years. I got people in the Discord server like, we're gonna see it, we're gonna see it. One guy even showed me a video of an airplane, and I'm like, do you think I'm dumb? That's not gonna work. If you're gonna do it, you have to show not just not just a screen cap from your phone. You need
A
to have a
selfie.
separate camera recording you looking at the ISS with your app in hand, with the light in the sky. Easy to do, right?
But you wouldn't even believe that because you'd
I
be
would.
like, that could have been
Nobody's ever
filmed.
done it. Nobody's ever done it. If you could stand there with
Could have
the
filmed
app,
out of it.
if you could look, it's never been done. If you could stand there with the, and there's more ISS believers than flat earthers. What does that say? If you could stand there with your app,
Is that going to be your quit it?
smile at the
Is that
camera,
going to be your
yes,
quit it? Like
smile at the camera, hold your app up, and the person recording you is gonna be like, look, the ISS is coming, and there'll be a light right over your shoulder. If you could do that, you win.
right after the lunar wave? Like right after the lunar wave, it's going to be like the same time.
I'm just wondering why
I
nobody
just,
has ever seen it. Like, okay, here's the thing. I'm
yeah.
going to put a reward on this. We'll start it off. We'll create like a GoFundMe, and it'll be like, if you can show us the ISS, no BS transit in front of the moon. Show us the ISS with the app. 100. How much would motivate you? $200, $300, $500. You'll get full credit. You'll be famous. You'll be the first person to have done it.
No, I $88. I think you could do like a weird $88. Yeah, $19.62 or whenever the last time we went to the moon. $88 sounds like something that people would go out there and try to do.
Right. Well,
$88.
it's like it's easy to do it, they say, but they don't do it. McToon is like, you can just go out and see it. Have you done it? No. I'm like, why are these people who believe
I
in this
don't.
stuff not?
I've had the app for 3 weeks, and the first day, it was cloudy outside, and I wasn't even going to try. Then 2 days later, it was going to be like 3 hours later, and I'm like, oh, like it's not every 90 minutes. Like I was like, this sucks, and
No,
so
no,
I
I got
kind
a
of gave up.
question. What Okay, what exactly about you makes what makes you believe the IS is there? Have you not seen any videos of the thing?
Jaren's video, Jaren's and Red Rhetoric.
So their transits convinced you that there's something up there, but you've never seen it. Do you believe in moon landings?
That I could possibly go out there and film, or even, well, I can't remember or recall if they said they saw it with their naked eye or they saw it through
You
their
can't.
lens,
You
like you're
can't.
saying.
You can't see it with your naked eye at night. You can't see it with your naked eye
Because
during the
it's too
day.
fast?
No, because
Because it's too
it's
fast?
it's too low. It's within the umbra of the Earth's shadow, and it doesn't get any sunlight. So you can't see it at night. Even if you were to stay up late with your app, you wouldn't be able to see it. The only reason they use
I'm
the
talking about the
transit,
silhouette.
yeah,
I'm talking about the silhouette.
only yeah, if you align it with the moon. But again, that takes a lot of coordination. It's very rarely done, and there's no eyewitness. They don't actually see it. And what we see is an insert shot. You know what about editing, what an insert shot is? It's not just raw footage, just recording for 10 minutes. It's pause, insert the shot of the little PNG dragged across the moon, a little animation, and then go back. It's obviously fake. And I think it's funny that we've destroyed this magic trick and you're still clinging to a belief that you have no evidence for, admittedly. And we're not debating. We're just agreeing here that you're a quote believer and I'm a disbeliever. And it's because you don't have evidence that I don't believe, and you don't need evidence because you're a believer because you have faith in what's presented on the screen.
All right.
Not a criticism, just
So
an
that's your
observation.
biggest quit? Biggest quit it is for people to stop saying the ISS is up there.
I'm going to destroy the
And
ISS with the first IPS
and you
cyber
won't go
symposium.
out there with with the apps and look up at the moon or point a camera at the moon and try to disprove it.
Do you know what the burden of proof is? Like the reason why, if somebody says to you, "Hey, the chupacabra is real," um, if they don't have
Yeah,
evidence, you're
and
not
the
required.
chupacabra comes. Yeah, and the chupacabra comes every 90 minutes. All you got to do is go out there and look up at the moon and film the chupacabra. And you're like, nope, it's not real. Like the Pokemon Go, it's going to be augmented reality. There's going to be microchips, programs in my phone
Okay,
showing
wait,
me
you
the
don't now, you don't sound
chupacabra,
like
but
a
it's going
space
to be real.
bro. You don't sound like the usual NASA fanboy. Like, do you know anything about the Mars missions or the names of the rovers?
The Valkyrie missions in the 70s
No,
or
right now. Like, do you
the
are you
newer one?
do you follow NASA? Like, astronomy pick of the day. Do you follow the latest launches? Did you watch the last Bezos launch?
Is Bezos the Blue Origin?
I'm asking because for somebody who's not a NASA fanboy, you're very defensive of their crappy ISS movie, and you have been for a couple of years. And I'm just curious, like, why defend
No.
that when you don't give a
Well,
crap about
why
the
do you
rest of it?
keep saying that it's going to come down if there's nothing up there?
No. I'm asking you, why are you defending something that you know you can't prove exists to skeptics who don't
I
accept?
apologize
No,
for
no, no.
answering your
No.
question.
It's I'm not asking. I'm asking, what is your objective? To take a belief that you can't substantiate and run it by skeptics as though you have something to stand on. Like you need to bring evidence, is what you need to do. You need to go outside and record yourself with your spaceship before you come over here because we're not going to take your burden of proof.
Well, can we both do it? Would you go out there and try to do it, like in the next 2 months? Like go out there
Hey, lift
and
my
make an
burden,
attempt to
lift my
look up
burden of
there?
proof for me. Please, it's too heavy for me. No, I'm going to take out my Hitchens razor, which says, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And I'm like, your claims are dismissed. It's that simple.
So you're saying you're not going to look up. Don't look up.
I'm saying that your claims are dismissed because I'm not lazy for not looking. You're lazy for not bringing evidence. The burden is on you.
What
It's
if I
logically
put down my
fallacious.
pizza and go outside and see it? What if I actually do it?
If you do it, I will give you my next 3 Patreon payments if you can prove the ISS exists. There's plenty of motivation. I have money to give you. Just do it instead of telling me to prove it to myself because you can't prove it. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, I'll try to do it next year. I'll try it because it's coming down soon. And
Anyway,
then
look,
my quit
cool
my
fantasy.
quit is chemtrails.
I just want you to admit.
I wish people would stop talking about chemtrails.
Okay,
That's my quit it.
look, I just want you to admit that you're an ISS believer, not a knower.
Oh, and it sucks because the astronaut footage of the ISS sucks so bad. but then people that because I kind of trust Jaron, so I kind of trust that he went out there and filmed it. So I'm like, shit.
You don't think he's
I'm a believer.
compromised?
Yeah.
You don't think he's compromised by NASA?
Jaron.
Yes. There's no other explanation. There's no other explanation. But anyway, hey, thanks for the call. I'm sorry that I got misled. You got misled by Jaron into believing in the space station despite all evidence to the contrary. Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, happy holidays, man.
Happy holidays, and we'll follow up on this. We'll come up with something.
Yeah, predict it or forget it. That's a good question.
We'll be waiting for your evidence. Thanks for the call.
All right.
So many ISS defenders, and look, I'm not impatient about this. Like, I will talk about this all night. But my thing is that we've been on this topic specifically for a few years. I have debunked repeatedly the ISS. We have destroyed the ISS transits as evidence of their existence. And yet we still have people who seemingly have one issue. Call the IPS and try to convince them that it's real, even though they've never seen it. And even if you're sincere, you have no business bringing a tall claim like that and asking us to accept it. It's like Jehovah's Witnesses. What do? You slam the door in their face. Hitchens' razor is an epistemological razor that serves as a general rule for rejecting certain knowledge claims. It states, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. I'm taking out my Hitchens' razor here, and I'm like, look, show me evidence of Pokemon, of Bigfoot, of unicorns, and of space stations and UFOs. Those all belong in the same category. And if you're going to bring any of these fantastical, mythological creations or constructs to my desk and tell me to believe it without evidence, I'm going to have to wonder, like, what is your incentive? You know, if my objective was to get somebody to believe in something, I would bring them a picture at a minimum. All right, let's see. Jake the A-hole says, Jaron filed a false restraining order against me after he wanted to measure my junk. But this guy trusts him. Yeah, look, this is just a fact. ISS transits do not count as evidence because it requires an insert shot and there's no witnesses. Meowry says, I was raised in the high Rockies near NORAD. I've never seen the ISS, even when the app tells me it's above. Yeah, and this is the thing. Nobody has recorded themselves holding the app with the ISS. Like, that would be a party trick. Like, hey guys, look, there's going to be a falling star. There's going to be a light in the sky. And you don't even have to tell them it's the space station. You bring him outside and like, look, it's going to show up in 5 seconds. Even on Jaron's fake transit, he's like 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it showed up right on time. So to the second, impress your friends with a space station appearance. Nobody does it. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, what's good, Tim? How you doing, man?
Pretty good here. Just having a nice, friendly conversation about spacecraft.
Yeah, I heard the last homie, he was talking about proving something on a... You offered him like $300, and he's like, no, $88 or something. I don't know what the hell he was on about.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad I finally get to talk to you, bro. I've been listening to you for a few years now, bro. You're one of the I don't know, man. You're just one of the ones that I go to for my worldly events, as we call them.
Hey, I appreciate it. And years, that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal that we've been maintaining this think tank for years in the same trajectory, and it's just not going to stop. And it's really because of the commitment of a lot of us, and the fact that you've been here for a while. Very cool. And
yeah, bro. I've been watching. Yeah, I've been wanting to call in for a long ass time, bro. But I just kind of be chilling in the cut and stuff. I'm kind of interested in like your perspective, because I know you think that like space is fake and all that. So I'm just curious what you think is out there, or what. Like I don't think I've ever heard you actually like say what you think is out there, because I don't know what the fuck it is, bro. I definitely don't believe anything that I've been told. And then after having my awakening of sorts many years ago, which even brought me to something like you know what I mean? Like I definitely don't believe that there's like a space station up there. For one, it's like, how come when did they even start saying that shit was up there? Because it was just like one day they're like, yo, there's a space station up there, but there ain't no fucking videos, there ain't no documentaries of this shit being made. They never talked about it in school. So I'm just kind of curious like about that, and I've just always been curious on what your thoughts are as far as
Okay.
What is space?
Yeah, you're right about the space station. They compare it to the pyramids, like it's a big deal. They constructed it. Where's this? Where's the time lapse? Why don't we have video of this thing
Yeah,
being built in space? It's just one day.
right. Like that should be something that we'd all be fascinated with. You know what I mean?
The best they can do is they have an animated GIF that shows you the stages of it being put together, like Lego instructions, but you never see it being put together. I mean, I'm I would be mad if I built that thing and nobody bothered to take a video of it. But
Right, right. Yeah,
see,
that's always been.
all of these debates about the shape of the world talk about it as though it's a shape, and they assume it's a shape, which is a loaded question. If we remove the premise that there is a shape, that the Earth is a discrete object, then we're on the bottom of creation, whatever this is. We're on a plane of
Right,
creation. And then it makes me wonder then,
right,
they gave us the bent world to constrain us so that we don't leave. We're on a 12,000-mile leash, and then we start going back around to where we were. So I'm thinking that maybe this is some kind of a extended plane and we're in a very controlled region. That's the best I can, but as far as what's beyond, I would need more information, but I don't believe because again, if it's not an object, there's no reason to assume endless space around us, just up. So I don't think that there's
right,
emptiness.
right,
So like the
right.
conventional
Yeah,
belief
that
is,
that's one thing I resonated with was the emptiness, like this idea of like traveling years and there's just like nothing around you but some like that's always seemed foreign to me and just weird, right? Just like that. I think it's like more interdimensional type frequency type shit. That's the way like consciousness can be infinite, but I don't believe that it's like we're gonna travel like the whole Mars bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like none of that just doesn't make common sense to me. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
and I do feel that this is stationary and that that's why I've always resonated with how you call it an infinite plane because I do feel like, have you ever seen the movie Coraline? See, I'm weirder than a fucking flat earther because I think it's way more intricate and way more just like mystical than that because I think like our consciousness creates it. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
I and
yes.
and I feel that so it would be infinite. Like, have you ever seen the movie Coraline? It's like my daughter's favorite movie, so I watch it quite often. And
No, what? No, I
there's a
haven't seen it.
part
What's
where
it called?
she
Quarter liners?
no Coraline.
Oh,
It's
Cor.
like
Oh,
the
oh, yes,
stop motion.
yes, the
Yeah,
animation.
Coraline. It's like yeah, right. Like there's a part where she's in the other dimension, and it stops rendering, and she goes into just like this complete white space, similar to the Matrix, and she's talking to this cat, and she's like, where am I? And she's like the demiurge, basically, of that realm. He said that she hadn't created it yet, so it wasn't like in her mind, like you know what I'm saying. And I think that too. Now this will get like real esoteric and weird and woo woo, but I'm just saying I think that it's more along that, like it's more along what our beliefs are. So if we are believing that we are on this like um, finite space, like this pebble in space as they call us, and make us feel like we're really nothing and shit, just an accident, then we're always going to think that um, that's just what we have as far as our resources. Then that becomes like the most easiest way to control us. And that's why when I think if it is like an infinite plane and there really is like I remember the first time I heard you be like, fuck Earth Day or whatever it was, like years ago, and I was like, what's this dude getting on about? And you were like, man, I like you kind of exposed the whole green agenda to me, and it fits along the lines of having this infinite plane and having this universe of abundance, yet we're in this man-made world of scarcity. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
that
So I
was
think it's
yes,
more along those lines. You know?
absolutely, absolutely, and reality monopoly restricting our concepts of not just geography but time with all their doomsday stuff.
Right,
And if we are, and this does get
right,
into the metaphysical, but if we are spiritual beings having a physical incarnation, then it would seem like this
right.
power structure would be perfect for keeping us locked in a cycle, in a loop, and increasing levels of being divorced from our true nature. So, in other words, yeah, I think there might be a
Yeah,
spiritual level to this dimension that keeps us constrained on a limited frame when the universe might be. I'm not even sure where it goes next, but this movie you mentioned, I remember it's Neil Gaiman, and he does a lot of great work as a writer on the topic of
Yeah.
reality as being co-created, and like the Bible and the Word turning chaos, let there be light. And he gets into this realm though
Right.
of the role of
Right.
storytellers and myths as being part of creation itself. Fascinating stuff.
Well, see, on like the micro to the macro, the whole as above, so below type aspect with most people, which most people just take as like some evil or occult, or they get all scared. And it's like in my personal experience, like years ago, I just started having these like personal insights of like um, my mindset being the reason of why my life was so fucking hard and fucked up, right? So long story short, I just started like deciding to think about my life differently, with which led to different actions. And then I started like hearing about like the law of attraction, and that got real convoluted and real goofy now, so I don't even like to bring that up. But i I was real with myself one time when I said I've only thought about negative shit in my life happening, and that's all I've ever manifested in my life. So like many years ago, I decided to flip that switch, and on a micro level, everything shifted in my reality. I mean, it's what brought me to like even people like you know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't on that frequency or vibration or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I just wasn't bringing this stuff in, bro. I'm a hip hop artist. I was just all about music, 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 music. You know what I'm saying? So when I changed my life through my mentalism, basically, and I took on like hermetic principles, and I just started like just playing with reality, my life changed. Everything about my life changed. Everything improved, but then again, it got real screwy, because if you are on this path, you got to face a lot of what goes in must come out. And if we have a lot of bullshit programming, we got to deal with that. But that's for a different conversation. So
Sure, but
anyway, yeah, man. Like
what you brought up just now
I
though
so,
is,
so
it's like if they convince you that the world is scarce, we're running out of time, and they
right,
constrain your over, I think it's about constraining your vision and your imagination. I mean, law of attraction,
right,
yeah, it's kind of convoluted, but the main point there is that what we hold in our attention, in our imagination, is something of a, 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 a way that it determines our trajectory, like a rudder as to where we're going. And it seems like if you're plugged into
if,
their
if,
matrix, they're going to steer you down a predetermined course.
right. And in my opinion, that's more precious than your money and our time. Is like when we're really like like when you get into this truther community or whatever the fuck it gets like, damn, it's like I'd almost rather just believe in what the so-called herd is believing in, because y'all say you got the news and you got the info, and your shit's way worse than what they're telling us on the news. So it's like, fuck. I just know that in my own life, the more I master my thoughts and I master myself, the more I realize that it's like a collective. It's a reflection of what's going on in the collective. You know what I'm saying? And when people just are so caught up in that, and they don't focus on themselves, and they have no knowledge of self, and like as you put it, being a spirit, having this human experience, like that sounds so woo woo and like bullshit to people. But when you experience it, you're like, oh, this realm, this infinite plane, this is much more magical than we even want to fucking fathom. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like I just experienced it in my own life. Like you can't explain synchronicities, and it's way bigger than just seeing angel numbers and coincidences. It's like, okay, what the fuck? You know what I mean? When you actually do bring something in through intentional manifestation, that is such a fucking level up. And sometimes it's just good favor. Homie, I went through this whole pandemic being the guy walking through the motherfucking store with no mask on my face, dapping it up with everybody. Like I haven't been sick in 4 fucking years. And I attributed that to me taking on these principles and being like, okay, my life is going on within this collective, but it is such an individual experience. You know what I'm saying? And when you really can focus on yourself, and you can take all that attention and put it on yourself, it changes the game. And then you realize the game that we're in. And I just feel like, if in that movie Coraline, I do think that they kind of unveil some real truth to how crazy this place or this infinite plane actually is, and why we are so targeted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. And like a month before I even came across the idea that the world wasn't as they said, I was already doing a deep dive into my own experiences with synchronicity and what I felt to be some kind of intuition guiding me with insights
Right.
that I didn't have, that led me to situations that I could not have, that, in other words, these synchronicities suggest that the world isn't arranged the way they say because cause and effect doesn't work this way. It's like reality
Right.
in the linear, past, present, future doesn't make perfect sense. Like the past uh, predictably results in the present, but then you have these synchronicities, and it's like, wait, did the world just shift? How did this even happen? Is it bending to my will? Is it communicating back in some way? And when we start looking at this from this perspective, at a minimum, it should cause you to rethink the scientific paradigm they've given us that is dead and soulless and doesn't include even
Have
the.
you ever heard of not to interrupt you? Have you ever heard of Saul Luckman? He's kind of in this community. He's also an author. He has a YouTube channel. But anyway, he wrote this thing, and it's basically like a paper. I don't know what you would call it, but it's basically saying like the scientific theory never even existed. It was just them. They decided that. Like that's to me, that's what physics is. It's like these constraints of saying if it doesn't fit into this box of what the experts and the scientists and whatever this new religion of science says, then it's impossible. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's along those lines. Like, yo, we think we know some shit, but we don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck how many books you read, player. I don't care how many courses you took or how many degrees you got and shit. If it's based on a limit, if like the game was played on us from the jump, it's a screwy ass game. But that's why I really preach individualism. I really preach this, not even to sound like new agey, bro. It's like ancient rights. It's whatever the fuck they've taken from us.
Yeah, I
That
would
I
say
know people.
perception, perceiving for yourself and not allowing them to override that with their screen. And this goes back, it is ancient. The very first skeptics, they said if you don't have information to believe and you're reacting, you're overreacting, that you should suspend judgment and you attain a peace of mind. And you mentioned earlier how the truthers make you want to go back to the dream world. And I would say that the blue pillars are
Yeah.
dreaming, truthers are having a nightmare, but they're not closer to truth. We, who've stepped beyond the nightmare and see through that and the dream world, we do achieve, I believe, a sense of peace about things because we're not caught up in the drama.
Yeah, I think it's actually like unintentional shamanism because that's kind of what a shaman is. Just like I make up the fucking rules here in my reality, and that's why they're able to do so many mystical things. And I think that a lot of us are that by default without even knowing it. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, interesting.
Just by.
Yeah, yeah. I read this book by Colin Wilson years ago. It's called The Occult, and he had another one called The Outsider. And he based his writings on the idea that 5% of the population are natural shamans, and it usually shows up as poets or in other ways, but people who have a natural
Oh,
connection
that's it.
to their subconscious. It's called The Outsider and The Occult. But yeah, he called it Factor X, and he said 5% have it, and that this is the trait that tends to define them. And I thought that's fascinating because I do think that.
Wow. Well, being a wordsmith myself, man, I resonate with that deeply.
Oh yeah, you should
Deep.
read it.
So
The
that's
first chapter was the poet as
what
a
is it called
cultist.
again?
The It's called Colin Wilson, The Occult, and the first chapter is poet
Okay.
as a cultist, and he talks about how poetry and the poets are naturally just in tune with their subconscious, in communication with it, and it's a fascinating take because he associates that with the shaman.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, talk about synchronicity, man. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be checking that out. The next book I check out, man. So I appreciate that. But yeah, bro, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm sure you got some other people that want to hop on here, but it was a pleasure. Uh, I just keep doing what you're doing, bro, and congrats on getting that case. That's gonna be big, even if you just make some big news with it. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly, it's a
you're
win-win
one of
for.
the ones, bro.
Hey, thank you,
I
thank you,
salute you.
thank you for calling, and appreciate it very
That's
much.
what's
And
up.
I'll probably check out that movie Caroline again and watch it a little more closely this time around.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of dope symbolism, just dope shit in that movie. That's like, it's a head scratcher for sure, man. All the
Good.
best to you, bro, and have a good New Year.
You too. Great call. Thank you. All right. Excellent. Excellent caller. I love the fact that we have people who have been along with us for this long and know what we're really about. And we are kicking off, I think, what's going to be our best year yet. It really is. We're taking auto hoaxing out there. The think tank is certainly not street legal, but it's roadworthy. Yeah, Salty Siren says Coraline is excellent. I love that movie. It's incredible animation. I want to watch it just for that. But now that I think about it, I'm gonna have to watch it. Alternate universes. But the author, Neil Gaiman, wrote some other books that I read, and a lot of it gets into the area of storytelling and the storytellers and their role in society and how narratives shape this reality in our internal experience of it. But that author I just mentioned, Colin Wilson, the reason why he stuck with me is he's one of these authors who actually talks about synchronicity in his writings. So it's a 1971 book. Topics covered include Crowley, George Gurdjieff, Helena Blavatsky, Kabbalah, and primitive magic. And let me see if I can find the table of contents. It's probably easy to even find it as a PDF. But here he has three parts in the occult. In the first, he argues the connection between creativity and psychic sensitivity, the tapping of the subconscious mind for the forces that are normally inaccessible to the consciousness. So he describes this in the context of mages, adepts. Dr. John Dee is mentioned. It's a fascinating book. And then in the last part, he talks about synchronicity in his own life. And he says here, he takes up the metaphysical questions that arise and the problem of time and gives concluding statements about the nature of man's latent powers. Again, it's The Occult, 1961. Excellent book, and I recommend his other one called The Outsider. But both of these delve into the idea that some people are naturally attuned to their subconscious and they can bring it into the conscious or the light of consciousness. Take it from the subconscious, bring it out, inspiration, creativity, and he correlated this again with the shaman. And when you look at the different magical traditions, and I'm studying a few of them now, a lot of it comes down to word and wordsmithing, runes, and the symbolism, language of symbolism. These alphabets are intrinsically magical languages first, before they come in and become part of the, like the fact that the elite have always ruled over the illiterate masses is part of the thing here. It's always been, like any other technology, more or less monopolized, but fascinating books there by Colin Wilson. Okay, let's see. I'm probably going to watch that movie again. I'm going to have to check it out. All right, I have to take off. It's a little late, but we'll start earlier tomorrow. Lean Dion says, look no further than Jake and Jelly for all your shamanic needs. Yeah, I think he's available online for live one-on-one shamanic consultations. He now goes by America Shaman. And Ollie Alexander, the crotch grabber and blackmailer in the conservative right, he goes by the American, I believe he calls himself, okay, Q Shaman. He's the Oracle, the American Oracle. Yeah, Ollie Alexander is the American Oracle. He claims to be a time traveler. I'm surprised he hasn't claimed to actually, like, literally be Sammy Davis Jr. Q&A with Ollie Alexander, Stop the Steal. I don't want to go down that trail right now. It's another one of these world stage characters. Just to wrap up really quick, here's a screen cap of Tucker Carlson hanging out with Kevin Spacey, and the pillow looks like a Masonic apron, and it's got little spirals on it, which is code for pedovore. So what is this? Is this a reveal? Is it mockery? A lot more to talk about, obviously, but we'll continue tomorrow morning with the IPS Morning D program. I spent the day packaging stuff. Books are in the mail, so if you're awaiting a book, Autohoaxology 101, even if you ordered it like 30 days ago, it's officially in the mailbox right now, and more are being stocked up. All right, we'll continue this conversation, and hopefully that first caller gets back to us in the next few days with some live footage of the space station, and maybe we'll see Don Petit up there, waving, and Chris Hetfield playing guitar, and there'll be Mark Kelly back there doing backflips, just playing around in a monkey costume. We'll see it all, hopefully, very soon. I await that evidence. All right, this is Chief Crow, Auto Hoax or GTFO, and we'll go back to the 24/7.